Fitness model Logan Franklin here. I'm going to show you guys an arm workout that I love to do. I hope you guys like it. Comment, rate, subscribe.
With the growth of the men's physique division in the IFBB, both literally and figuratively, it was inevitable that over time, crossovers would become more common between divisions. With Classic Physique serving as the next step up from men's physique, the distinction used to be size. But as the disparity in size has decreased, we've seen the crossovers increase. To me, the only visible difference between the two divisions is the legs, and that's only because they don't get judged in men's physique. But for those competitors who have some wheels on them, or at least the potential to build some, they can make that transition successfully. And few other competitors have been able to do that in recent memory than the Texas Oak himself, Logan Franklin. Born in the Lone Star State on April 2, 1991, Logan Franklin began training at the age of 14 in his dad's home gym. Using his dad's imposing size as motivation, Logan worked to build and add some serious muscle to his frame. Another big motivator for Logan was the desire to be left alone by bigger kids. Like many bodybuilders, Logan was a skinny kid in his early adolescence and wanted to use his newfound gains as a deterrent from any bullies who could possibly want to mess with him. He admittedly couldn't even lift the bar his first time bench pressing. This was all the motivation that he needed. He didn't immediately get into bodybuilding though, as he was a two-sport athlete in football and baseball. In his senior year of high school, he even competed in motocross racing. Tragedy struck Logan in high school when his sister passed away, and this kind of tragedy understandably made it rather difficult for him to stay focused on his grades. This event, combined with the lingering effects of the 9/11 tragedy, motivated Logan to consider military service as a legitimate career path. After graduating high school, Logan immediately enlisted in the US Army and served with the 4th Infantry Division. This comes as no surprise because military service runs in his family, with his dad also being an Army veteran and his mom having served in the National Guard. His grandfather was even the recipient of 2 Purple Heart medals. He spent his 5-year military career in Afghanistan and South Korea, even seeing combat. In an interview with MuscleandFitness.com, Logan recalled his fondest moment in the military as the day he touched back down on American soil. He came back in 2014 and set his sights on a new goal: bodybuilding. Now, you may be wondering, what piqued his interest in competing and taking his physique to the next level anyways? Well, it was good old Instagram. See, Logan's only physique goal in the military was to be the most efficient soldier he could possibly be. But once the vast world of fitness on Instagram was open to him, he was not only interested in entering that world, but confident that he could succeed in it. Logan names the late Greg Plitt as his early inspiration.
I look up to Greg Plitt. He's been my fitness icon forever. We have really similar backgrounds, He's crazy motivational. He inspires me, and I want to do what I can to inspire others the same way.
Using the structure and discipline instilled in him by the military, Logan was determined to find success as a figure in the fitness industry, and bodybuilding would become the avenue through which he would achieve that. In 2014, he attended the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, the Mr. Olympia. It was being in the presence of the best in the world that motivated Logan to try to compete with them. Men's physique specifically was the division he felt his physique was best suited for. Already being in shape from his 5 years of military training, Logan didn't have to wait long before stepping on stage. After 4 months of prep, in October of 2014, he stepped on stage for the first time at the 2014 Formulation Classic in Stafford, Texas, placing first in Open Class D. Less than 4 weeks later, he stepped on stage at the 2014 NPC Nationals in late November and not only won his class, but won the overall and turned pro. Confirmation to Logan that this truly was his calling. I mean, winning the overall at your first national qualifier and repeating that at your first pro qualifier is the stuff that dreams are made of. In March of 2015, he made his pro debut at the 2015 IFBB Governor's Cup in Sacramento, California, placing second. After this show, it would be tough sledding for Logan, as he jumped into the 2015 Pittsburgh Pro and placed 11th out of 15 competitors. Then he competed at the 2015 New York Pro in May and was tied dead last with 27 other competitors. Jesus, I hope they had enough space backstage. Logan took the rest of 2015 off to improve on his size and came into the 2016 season strong, placing second at the Carina Nascimento Pro, 4th at the New York Pro, and 2nd at the Europa Dallas, which gave him the confidence he needed to compete at his first Olympia. 2 years after entering the sport, and he would be standing on stage with some of the same guys who mesmerized him back in 2014. Logan looked fantastic at his first Olympia and brought his best package to date, finishing 9th in an absolutely stacked lineup of 40 competitors. Not too bad for his first Olympia, given the caliber of bodybuilders that he was up against. Over the course of the next 2.5 years, Logan would continue to put in work. His most notable placings were 1st at the 27 Europa Dallas, 4th at the 2018 Arnold Classic and 1st at the 2018 Tampa Pro. He also improved on his Olympia placing in 2017, going from 9th to 7th. This wasn't the improvement that he promised though, because heading into that Olympia, he did an interview with RX Muscle where he declared that he would make reigning 3-time Olympia champion Jeremy Buendia disappear. This came after Jeremy had fired the first shot by making a side-by-side post of him and Logan.
Since you want to post side-by-sides, I'll make a fair post. So I googled one of his stage shots from his last showing, and then I posted it next to one of my stage shots from my last showing, in 3.5 weeks time, and we'll see what happens then. If everything goes down and I'm judged fairly, you stand me next to him, and I promise you I'm going to make him disappear.
They had been having a back and forth on social media that generated a ton of hype for the show, but when they both took the stage, it wasn't even close. All-time best Jeremy showed up, and you know how that goes. In what would be his final Olympia in men's physique, Logan fell 4 placings down to 11th, likely due to the regression with his conditioning. He looked to bounce back strong at the Arnold, which he did, and Logan brought a noticeably bigger and more complete physique to the 2019 Arnold Classic, but finished in 4th place. Logan felt like he had been bringing the best physiques he could have, but despite that, he couldn't understand why he wasn't placing higher at some of the bigger shows. According to him, he felt like it was more of an abs competition because a lot of guys placing higher than him only had better abs, which there is some truth to. Another reason he may not have been placing higher was due to the dominance of guys like Brandon Hendrickson and Andre Ferguson, which their momentum wasn't slowing down, so the path for Logan to catch those guys was a bit murky. That year, he very quietly decided to make the transition over to Classic Physique, a transition that would undoubtedly be tough considering the difference in presentation, size, and the depth of competition. Oh yeah, and there's this guy named Chris Bumstead over there. They say he can be pretty tough to beat. But none of this mattered to Logan, as he was ready to challenge himself. With the size that he was progressively adding, his physique had become very well suited for Classic, especially because of his impressive leg development. Everyone and their auntie could see the potential. There's this common misconception that men's physique competitors don't train legs at all, or at least don't train them as hard as their upper bodies, which is completely false. They all train legs, and some are better developed than others, just like in all bodybuilding divisions. After all, these are elite level athletes, and the notion that they don't train legs is just ridiculous. Logan's shift came as a surprising yet exciting development in bodybuilding, as he had built a pretty solid reputation for himself as a guy who boasted not just an impressive physique and supermodel good looks, but a huge social media following to back him as well. I mean, the dude's gym selfie game is top tier, just saying. Everyone wanted to see how Logan would look in Classic trunks, and how he could stack up with the cream of the crop in Classic. Hell, some people even doubted whether or not he'd be able to compete at that level, while you had others who were downright predicting him to be the next Mr. Olympia. The fans would just have to be patient and wait. And at the 2019 Tampa Pro, the Texas Oak made his debut in Classic Physique and finished 3rd, bringing a package that impressed everyone. Heading into that show, there was a lot of speculation and hype around Logan considering he was the biggest name in that lineup, and testing the waters in Classic Physique for the first time. But it was pretty clear that Logan's foundation for Classic was there. He's always had an amazing structure. He's got the frame at 5'11", it's the muscle mass that Logan was lacking, as he still looked a bit slender standing next to the other guys in that lineup. His conditioning could have been a bit tighter as well. Despite that, top 3 was nothing to scoff at. After the Tampa Pro, Logan decided to shut it down and go into an off-season where he worked to build some much-needed muscle to be competitive in Classic Physique, and that he did. Logan did a great job of keeping the fans updated through Instagram, which he was great with, and got everyone talking again about his potential for the upcoming New York Pro, which was pushed to September because of the pandemic. Logan's progress was one of the most talked about topics in the Classic Physique community throughout the height of the pandemic. But after months of improvements from Logan and months of anticipation from the fans, we'd get to finally see how the new kid on the block would fare. And at the 2020 New York Pro, Logan Franklin brought a much improved package which not only left the fans speechless, but sent the competition home in shambles because he looked undeniably impressive. It was very clear that the show was his to lose from prejudging, and he made sure that didn't happen. Logan brought a fantastic overall package, improving literally every aspect from his size to his conditioning and his posing. Logan Franklin had officially proven that he wasn't just hype. He truly had a physique to support that hype. And heading into the 2020 Olympia, he'd let that be known by starting yet another feud with yet another reigning Olympia champion, Chris Bumstead. You can say what you want about Logan, but confidence was definitely not something he lacked. He called out Chris on Instagram. Chris being someone who was never involved in any drama. But Chris wasn't having any of it, because despite his diplomatic and laid-back demeanor, Chris has proven that he's the most confident competitor in the division. I mean, if you don't believe me, look at this damn walkout. That's a dude who knows he's already won. But anyways, Chris clapped back at Logan.
Do you consider him to be a pretty good threat this year?
Not this year, no. Not this year. I think he's got some... I'm a fan of his physique. I'm a fan of Logan. Me and him, we chat the other time. He's definitely got a hot head. He's a true American. He believes in himself, as he should. I think, personally, that he'll be climbing his way up the ranks over the next few years, and I think he'll be battling in the kind of the top 3 spot, but I don't think he'll be winning Olympia until I decide to retire.
It also wasn't just Chris that Logan came at. He subtly dissed some of the other guys in Classic by claiming that he was really the only guy that could see eye to eye with Chris, and for that reason, he'd have the best shot at taking him down. And that he was the only one that could go pose for pose with him.
You know, what do they say? Everybody wants to compare me to the only guy that it truly matters to be compared to, and that's the champ, Chris Bumstead. So my goal is to come in there and bring a better version of what the champ is bringing. And a lot of the other guys in the top, you know, they're below him. They're, you know, 5'7", 5'8". I think, I'm not sure how tall Terrence Ruffins is. I'm pretty sure he's around 5'7", 5'6", somewhere around there. You got Breon that's 5'7" or 5'8". So I believe it takes a Titan to take out a Titan. You know, someone that can stand eye to eye with somebody and match them on their poses, especially. I think that I could push Chris for sure.
Sure, him and Chris are the same height at about 6 feet, but one important factor that Logan wasn't taking into account was fullness and size. Chris was noticeably bigger than Logan when you compare the two physiques, and I would make the argument that there wasn't a single pose that Logan could actually match Chris in. It just wasn't close. Not to mention, the bodybuilders that are beneath Chris, as Logan mentioned, were some of the best bodybuilders in the world, and not only filled out their frames better, but brought some of the best detail and muscular density in that division. To set his eyes on Chris was a challenge Logan really wasn't ready for. This would be proven when the 2020 Olympia rolled around, when Logan made the first call out, but never even got the chance to stand next to Chris, as guys like Breon Ainsley, Terrence Ruffin, Brian Jones, and Alex Cambronero all placed ahead of him. Deservedly, I might add. Even though Logan's name was called for that first call out, he didn't just struggle with that group, but with some of the guys in the second call out as well. So much for going pose for pose with Chris. Logan would end up taking 9th at the 2020 Olympia, getting beat by some guys that he most definitely overlooked. Guys like Divine Wilson and Ricky Moten Jr., who had already beat him in Tampa a year prior. Logan did not have the size to back up all that trash he was talking. He lacked the full muscle bellies that some of his other competitors had, and the level of conditioning that they were bringing. Undeterred, Logan got back in the gym and worked on adding size, something that he was documenting very well on his Instagram, and again, everyone was taking notice. 8 months after the Olympia, he competed at the 2021 Texas Pro, where he placed second to Robert Timms, who looked amazing, I might add. Logan was clearly a lot bigger than his previous package, something which was very apparent on stage. Where he lost to Robert at this show was just conditioning in my opinion. Despite that, the Texas Pro was a solid showing for Logan as he beat 2 well-known names in Steve Laureus and Neil Curry. He just needed a few more weeks to dial in his conditioning, and he did just that at the Arnold Classic 1 month later. Logan's 2021 Arnold Classic package was his best showing as a Classic Physique pro. He looked fuller, shredded, his color was on point, and his posing was crisp as usual. He ended up taking 3rd behind Terrence Ruffin, whose proportions are virtually impossible to compete against unless you're Chris Bumstead, of course. And Alex Cambronero, a Classic Physique veteran whose conditioning is always top tier, which also makes him very hard to beat. Even though he won the New York Pro literally a year prior to the day, Logan's 3rd place Arnold Classic finish was much more impressive than his New York Pro victory, because the caliber of competition he was up against was much better. After all, it is the Arnold. He also beat Brian Jones and Danny Yunin, 2 guys who placed higher than him at the 2020 Olympia. Logan's been cementing himself as one of the best rising Classic Physique guys in the division, with steady improvements from show to show and boasting a beautiful structure and overall aesthetic. The question was never whether or not Logan had what it took to successfully transition to Classic Physique. He was a bodybuilder and a Marine, so there was no doubt he had what it took. It was really a matter of how long it would be before he was actually in the company of the elite. Considering it's been less than 3 years since his transition, I would say he's pretty damn close. In his most recent show, he won the Sean Ray Hawaiian Classic at the end of 2021, and has been spending the 2022 season growing, because with the rise of Urs Kalsinski and Ramon Dino, the pool of elite talent just got bigger. I think Logan can definitely hang with those guys sooner than later, because his physique does have the wow factor that Breon Ainsley talked about. The structure, the aesthetics, the added size, it's definitely there for Logan. And that's what's intrigued people about Logan Franklin, including myself. When you looked at the physique that he started out with in Classic, it was clear as day he had the genetic potential to be a great Classic bodybuilder. It was clear that his transition to Classic physique would be very fun to watch, given all that potential. Potential that he's been slowly maximizing. Now, in terms of social media, he capitalized on the influencer wave fairly early and has reaped the benefits of that, amassing almost 1 million followers. He posts regularly showcasing his family and some really aesthetic poses in the gym. So he's been doing a fantastic job of continuously growing his brand. He's also sponsored by Vanquish Fitness, who he's been with for quite some time now, and he's also one of their bigger athletes. In terms of supplement sponsors, he's had quite a few, but as of now, he's currently signed with GAT Supplements according to his Instagram bio. With Logan Franklin, it's always been about time. With the departure of Breon Ainsley from Classic Physique this year, there now remains a spot in the top 5 elite. Whether Logan claims that spot for himself, we'll have to wait and see. What we do know for sure is that the Texas Oak is well on his way. And I also forgot to mention that Logan is probably the ultimate Chad. I mean, not to stereotype him, but man, on a scale of 1 to Chad, Logan's probably at like a 15. I mean, honestly, if there was like a Chad beauty contest, he'd most definitely be up there with Noel Dazel and More Plates, More Dates. If you like this video, consider giving it a like. If you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you know when I drop my next video. Logan Franklin's transition to Classic has been easily the most successful of any men's physique athlete, and he's been doing a fantastic job of that. Whether or not that trickles down to a lot of other competitors still remains to be seen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of other athletes follow in his footsteps. I'm Large Kofi, thank you for watching.